Hello, welcome to the Met Office 10-day trend. Wednesday marks the start of the meteorological winter, and we're going to start talking about some wintry weather. Certainly a contrast compared with the wet and very mild weather we've seen through November so far. That was carried in on an active jet stream which picked up areas of low pressure across the Atlantic and sent them towards the UK. But taking a look at the big picture at the time of recording, the jet stream still running in across part of the Atlantic, then splits in two as it reaches the UK. And the reason behind that is because of a large area of high pressure increasingly dominating our weather from the east. It's been there for some time, but it's going to exert its influence more and more across the UK during coming days, blocking the jet stream, blocking those rain-bearing weather fronts and keeping things largely settled. We've already seen the effect of that this week with the frost and fog by nights, less wind and rain, and a downward trend with temperatures. And we'll continue to see that on Thursday, the southern half of the UK starting off with some dense fog patches and a frost in places. Now the northern half of the UK, so for northern England, parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland will start the day with cloud and some outbreaks of rain, milder here as well as a result, because we've got weather front pushing in, squeezing in from the Atlantic, and this will bring some wet weather, some damp weather into Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England during Thursday, and another weather front perhaps bringing some rain into the northwest as we begin the weekend. But elsewhere across the UK, this high increasingly becoming important. In fact, the isobars around the edge of that high tightening. Now, what that will lead to is an increased breeze this weekend, so that means fewer fog patches by night and generally brighter mornings, but it will also start to feel colder. I'll put on the blues there to show you temperatures will be going below average this weekend. But this isn't the kind of cold that we often associate with easterly winds in the winter. It's not coming from Siberia, it's coming from elsewhere in Europe. So colder than average, yes, but not exceptionally cold, no. It'll certainly be a contrast compared with the weather we've seen so much of recently, however, so you'll notice that. Daytime maximum temperatures on Sunday, for example, 4 to 7 degrees, but when you add on the wind, well, it's going to feel even colder than that, with temperatures feeling more like 1 to 2 Celsius. But it's those temperatures on the thermometer that are important when it comes to snow, and it looks like they won't quite be low enough for snow at lower levels. There will be plenty of showers around, though, through Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Those showers are becoming more and more frequent as that easterly wind picks up moisture over the North Sea. But through the weekend and the start of next week, it looks most likely that snow will be falling above 400 metres. So for the Welsh mountains, the Pennines, the Scottish mountains, perhaps some higher ground at, over the southern parts of the UK as well. But mostly it's hill snow. You wouldn't entirely discount snow to lower levels than the 400 metres I mentioned. If we get some persistent wet weather, which is always possible, and some heavier wet weather, that can cool the atmosphere enough to bring snow down to lower levels, but it's too early to give specifics on that. However, what we do have is low pressure towards the southwest, and that's likely to bring up some further showers, perhaps some longer spells of wet weather as well. So mainly through to Monday, it's rain at lower levels, snow over the hills, not the kind of easterly, very cold, snowy weather that we've experienced in the past at this stage. Also, the jet stream is all over the place by this stage. It's no longer this straight line, powerful thing coming in from the west, picking up areas of low pressure and mild air. You can see it's just spinning all over the place. And that's because this is quite an unusual setup for the UK. This is the default setup with lower pressure towards the northwest and higher pressure towards the southwest, and jet stream coming in from the Atlantic bringing us changeable and milder weather. But this setup does oscillate. Sometimes we get lower pressure over Iceland and higher pressure over the Azores. Sometimes vice versa, higher pressure over Iceland and lower pressure over the Azores. Either way, there's a seesaw effect where these two balance each other out, and this seesaw effect oscillates, and that's called the North Atlantic oscillation. Positive North Atlantic oscillation is a more extreme version of this. Lower pressure to the northwest, higher pressure to the southwest, and strong westerlies, mild and changeable weather. Vice versa, a negative North Atlantic oscillation is where we get higher pressure to the north, lower pressure to the south, and the winds switch around. easterlies. So this particular weather pattern, higher pressure to the north, lower pressure to the south, is represented on this chart by the dark reds. And this basically sums up the chances or the probabilities of various weather patterns affecting the UK during the next 2 weeks. The date is on the bottom there. And what's most stark about this chart is that it's dominated by these dark reds. This isn't representing temperatures, it's representing weather patterns, and this weather pattern is the dominant one from all the different computer model runs, the dozens or so from the Met Office model, the European model, and the American GFS model. They're all agreeing low pressure to the south, higher pressure to the north. All these other weather patterns with these different colours are not really showing up on the chart for the next 2 weeks. So that's something we can be very confident that will happen over the next 10 to 14 days. But what this doesn't show is the very subtle changes in the position of that low to the south and the high to the north, and that makes a big difference. Some of those computer model runs are showing this kind of solution. Low pressure to the south of the UK, high pressure to the north, effectively the same the situation that we're seeing through the weekend, with an easterly, although not a bitterly cold easterly. So rain at lower levels, some snow showers over hills, and so on. Temperatures below average, but not exceptionally so. That's less likely because it's represented by a minority of computer model runs. More computer model runs are suggesting just a very subtle change in the location of those low pressure and high pressure areas. Something more like this: higher pressure to Greenland and Iceland, and then low pressure over Scandinavia and a northerly airflow. Now that would be colder than what I just showed, and it would bring northerly winds with snow showers just about anywhere, but particularly to northern and eastern parts of the UK later next week. But even with this, the northerly solution, the temperatures don't look exceptionally low, not like, for example, we saw with the Beast from the East in March 2018, but it would still bring below average temperatures. It would bring the possibility of snow showers to lower levels. You can see the range in different temperature outcomes on this chart. This shows the red line here, the average daytime maximum, and the blue line, the average overnight minimum. And the red boxes and blue boxes show the forecast for the next 2 weeks. The bigger the boxes are, the greater the uncertainty. The boxes are all below their average lines, basically, for a central part of the UK. And really, by the time we get to next weekend, the boxes are getting bigger, but they're all below the red lines and blue lines. So what that suggests is we've got high confidence that through the next 10 days, we'll have this blocked pattern where we've got northerlies or easterlies. Northerlies looking a bit more likely, but easterlies still possible. It's going to be colder than average. How cold it will be is still open to question because of those different solutions, but there's likely to be snow in places. At first, hill snow, the possibility at lower level snow by the end of next week. But it's way too early to give specifics, of course, on location and extent of any wintry precipitation, snow and ice and so on. What I will show you as well, though, is an extended version of that chart I showed before, so that dark red dominating the weather patterns over the next couple of weeks. But then, mid-December, these blues start to make an impression. However, lots of different colours from mid-December. So what this suggests is that no solution is favoured from mid-December. It doesn't look like any outcome is particularly likely. It looks like the computer models are struggling to tell whether we're going to get a return to Atlantic weather from mid-December and mild, wet weather, or whether the colder stuff will stay with us. So, of course, we'll keep you updated on all of that over the next week or two, but for now, plenty to think about in terms of wintry weather, and you can stay across it all by following us on social media. Bye-bye.